Moving on to our next speaker. So Cristina is a curious mind, a doer, but also a dreamer. She was the former general manager of Evernote EMEA, and she now is a CEO and founder of We Are Play Labs. She is inspired about radical collaboration. She wants to shift minds. And a fun fact about Cristina: in her previous life, back in Romania, she was a radio star. So, Cristina, the stage is yours. Let's start from the beginning, Cristina.
So, oh wow, it's a long story, so how much time do we have? Because I started at the very top, you see. I mean, I was born in Romania, and since I was little, I was born in a modest family. So my parents were workers in a factory, and of course they dreamt that I could have the best life ever. So they always encouraged me to study and to go to the university. And they were convinced that, should I go to the university and have this diploma, then, life would be just great. And then, so I did. So I studied, I went to the university, I wanted to do more. So actually I was dreaming about becoming not a radio star, but just working at a radio. Mm-hmm. And then actually, as I was beginning my university studies, it so happened that the radio was looking for someone, and then I got a job. So I got a pleasure to be a radio moderator when I was 19. And in practice, that meant waking up at 4 a.m. in the morning, having the radio show from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m., and then being at the university until late at night. But it was a lot of fun.
Cool.
And there I was, at 19, at the very top. So what else is left then, right?
What did your parents tell you? Were they happy that you were a radio moderator?
My parents definitely were proud of me. And looking back, it was I was a bit also ashamed, because back then I was just, a kid almost. And I had 6 times the salary of my father, who was working for 34 years. So it was somehow not fitting the real picture. But I wanted to discover the world. So this is why, and I think the entrepreneur in me always wanted to go to the edges, to learn more, to discover more, to push myself out of the comfort zone. And this is why, unlike any of other people who would have just kept, doing the great radio job and many other things that I could do in Romania, I decided to leave. And then when I arrived in Switzerland, then from one day to the other.
One more question maybe about Romania.
Yes.
So in Romania, it's almost a fairly even split between engineering for men and women in engineering. Was that an option for you to study engineering?
Yeah, so because I was a rebel, and because engineering was actually high on everybody's agenda during the communism, many of you may know, actually that was the place to go. So everybody would, if you would go to the university, you would be encouraged to go and become an engineer. And right after the revolution, I wanted to do the opposite. So actually, I wanted to go against the trend, and this is why I studied more philosophy and languages. And yeah.
The power of choice. So
yes.
If it's normal, then you can just choose something else.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, and then you went to Switzerland.
Yeah, and then when I arrived in Switzerland, from one day to the other, I was just nobody, and my university diploma was not recognized, and being a radio moderator from Romania, honestly, doesn't mean anything here. So there you go. So I think that was quite an important episode in my life. First, I despaired, so first I had that feeling that I will never make it. So first I thought, I just cannot, I don't speak German, I cannot. And then I was, I think, at the bottom, and then that actually awoke the entrepreneur in me. And I had this sort of epiphany when I realized that actually I am not my job. We should not identify ourselves with a career or a job. And as long as we stay true to our essence, to our true selves, that can manifest itself in many different ways and shapes and forms. So with that in mind, I thought, okay, so if I was studying communications and I was at the radio, what could I do here? And I thought, well, PR, public relations, would be probably the next best thing. So I started with a PR assistant course. And then I did the Certificate of Advanced Studies. And then I got myself hired in a PR agency specialized in design and architecture. And I would develop this German vocabulary only around design and bathroom fittings, so we could have a conversation in German about that later on if you want. And in Switzerland, if you're in communications, the highest possible degree you can have is it's the master's in Lugano. And it was something that I was aiming to do. So after working a few years in this PR agency, I managed to go and start this master's in Lugano, a joint program with UCLA. And I thought, okay, I need this diploma because otherwise I'm just not going to make it here. And funny thing was that after I did Lugano and I graduated and I had my shiny diploma, I ended up joining this small startup in Silicon Valley called Evernote. It was really, really small, and they couldn't care less about my diplomas. So basically they asked, okay, so you went to the university, did you have fun? All right, now tell us, how are you going to help us, to develop Evernote? And that was really incredible. So me joining Evernote was one of the best things ever. Because back then it was, it was really early on. It was a small startup, and I was with Evernote for 5 years during the hyper-growth phase, and that was just incredible.
So you came from a high, you went to Switzerland, started back from zero. Like, tell us, how did you cope with those situations where everything seems impossible? How do you get back on track?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's really hard because what happens is that it forces you to go again to the core of who you are. It's so much more than just having a job or a career, but it's really about who are you and what do you want to do in this world. And it's at first really tough, but then again, I think it's really a powerful opportunity because in my case, that opened up just an incredible world of possibilities. And we are surrounded by opportunities. That's the thing. We sometimes just choose to focus maybe on one thing or the other, but actually there are so many things around us. And as soon as we are opening up and we it's not about not being afraid, but feel it really deep inside. Feel that you're afraid, feel that you believe that you will not make it, but do it anyway. And go out there and talk to people. And if you truly believe in your core essence and you put yourself out there in the world in an authentic way, good things will happen to you.
So after Evernote, with the belief that good things will just happen, you founded your own company, We Are Play Labs. So what is We Are Play Labs about?
Yeah, so we were discussing also before coming from the tech world, we see that we do have an issue when it comes to having more women in tech. And the more I looked at it, the more I realized that it starts really early. I'm also a parent, so I was exposed firsthand to the schooling system, and I felt that along the way, we are losing so much human potential, and we need to start early. So when I decided to leave Evernote, people said, what are you doing? And why education? Because you're not an educator. What do you want to do in education? But I strongly believe that, again, the entrepreneur in me believes that education is a big challenge we are facing today, and that it takes many of us coming together and figuring out how to do it better, because we definitely can. So my idea was, again, I didn't know in which form and what I will do. And my idea of accelerating positive change in education happens through the work with We Are Play Lab. It's a foundation. We are a startup. We are still at the very beginning. It also had to do with me helping to launch the Swiss EdTech Collider at the EPFL. This is the first community of EdTech, education technology entrepreneurs in Switzerland. and just supporting and encouraging and coaching entrepreneurs on a daily basis.
So tech for education, that seems to be quite tough. Like, how do you get people excited into tech? How do you bring digitization into the classroom?
It goes well beyond just, let's say, digitalization. And this is why, for me, this is an incredible learning journey, because the more we look at what education should be today, right? So the more we look at how can we move away from this production line model where we just move along and we get our diplomas and, you know, we will get assessed, and some of us will make it and some not. The more we realize that, again, it is high time that we ask ourselves, first of all, what should education be all about in the 21st century? And then we look at, you know, a student-centered approach. So we look at a human-centered approach, and then we realize the fact that it's not about knowledge only. It's about developing certain skills, the character, but also there's a meta level involved that has to do with a growth mindset. So I don't know how many of you may be probably familiar with the growth mindset from...
Maybe you explain it quickly.
Yes, but basically, if you're embracing a growth mindset, you believe that you can develop, you can become whoever you want to be, you will see challenges as opportunities for growth. If you have a fixed mindset, you will say, well, I was born like this, you know, I was born in Romania, I was born in this family, I had only this diploma, this is only what I can do. So the more we actually, you know, let our kids know early on, it's, you know, not asking them what do you want to become in the sense of asking them what job do you want to have when they are very small. But rather than that, just saying, you know, how are you going to develop your interests, your passions, your skills? I think we need to do so much work. And then, of course, digitalization plays an important role in all this challenge we have with education. But it is actually an opportunity, because technology today can help us to make learning personalized, more fun. You know, so I think there's that part that I am personally particularly excited about, and this is why I'm so much involved in EdTech, because I believe that technology can definitely help us make learning better.
So do you produce own, kind of digital tools where people can actually learn how the Pythagoras works, etc., or how should we think about We Are Play Labs?
So first of all, think about We Are Play Lab Foundation as an ecosystem, because we are not a typical organization. The idea is that we work in an interdisciplinary setting. So we work with researchers, with designers, with entrepreneurs, with educators and communities. And then our work gravitates around specific initiatives and projects. This year, to give an example, we have 2 flagship initiatives. One of them is Spotlight. With that, we were looking at identifying emerging best practice in digital transformation in the classroom, in kindergarten, primary, and secondary schools here in Switzerland. And we were zooming in those particular examples where you have these incredible teachers who just dare to do things differently. So again, they look at the bigger picture of what learning and education should be today, and they use technology to amplify that and to create amazing learning spaces for their students. And some of us may think that, they do not really exist, these people, but they are out there. And it is, I think, our job to really put the spotlight on them and to share that knowledge with the world and to inspire other teachers to do the same. And then the second flagship initiative is Project Square. And with Square, we are looking at democratizing computational thinking beyond the screens, again, in the classrooms. We focus a lot in the classroom schools, because if we are to empower our kids, as we know, they do spend a lot of time at school and with their teachers. So if you want, we believe that the more we inspire and we work together with teachers and of course with parents in parallel, the more change is going to follow. So Project Square is something that I am particularly passionate about, because there we see how early on you can also inspire girls and not only inspire, but also in Switzerland, primary school teachers would be normally women around 40 years old, and they have not been using technology early on, so they are quite afraid, right? So when we come with Project Square and we demystify notions such as algorithms in a way that speaks to them, this is just powerful. And then why should we do this? Well, we always say, it's not necessarily about any of us becoming IT specialists or engineers. I mean, it should be a choice. It's fun. So we want to definitely say that it's a fun thing to do and it's exciting. But what happens is that if we do not understand what an algorithm is today, then Brexit happens, right? So, I mean, we have a moral duty to make sure that people are not left behind and that we can participate in the discussions around technology, and that women, of course, and men, we have an equal share at the table where decisions are made.
Well, thank you for being with us, Cristina. It's great that you enlighten students from the very young age. We know this is super important. To all of you, please share your questions on our social media that you have for Cristina so we can ask her later on during the Q&A. Thank you very much.